Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Today, a real treat. I am debuting the new for 2021 Moser Cie Streamliner Perpetual calendar. After the launch of the Streamliner Flyback and then Center Seconds in 2020, Moser expands the line with a new perpetual calendar that plays on one of its traditional strengths in its new, sporty, integrated and organic Streamliner case and bracelet profile. So this watch, in terms of bare dimensions and stainless steel, is very similar to the Streamliner Flyback. So it's 42.3 millimeters in diameter. It is 13.4 millimeters thick, so it's considerably thinner than the Flyback. And then as I measure it end link to end link, taking one link on each side, it has a span of 48.1 millimeters across the wrist. Now we're going to throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. You can see, though it has the same physical footprint as the Flyback chronograph, it is a lower watch. Easier to fit underneath the cuff, a little bit flatter. The timepiece plays a bit smaller, even though bare dimensions would suggest it is the same size by diameter. Now you can see it has a lovely cambered crystal. There is a dramatic slope to the sapphire on both the Flyback and the Perpetual, and you can see that all of the features that make this watch a tribute to the 70s endure. It's not redolent of any given model. It has a lot of originality, and because of the way the bracelet arcs around the wrist, I can recommend it for wrists as small as 14 centimeters circumference. Now the originality of that design continues from case to lug to bracelet. In an era when everyone seems to be building steel integrated bracelet sports watches, it seems that Moser is the only one that doesn't want to overtly play on the popularity of Gerald Genta designs. So they went with a more organic design that references the spirit of the 70s without actually plagiarizing any one reference. So we have this wonderful lapping machine radial grain that emanates from an imaginary center point atop the dial. We have a lovely sandwich case profile. As you can see, Moser cases always have a dramatic recess in their profile, and rather than the scalloped and mirrored profiles of the Venturers and the Endeavors, here we have a more of a relief profile, a channel that runs all the way around. This is why I call the design organic. I almost feel like I'm looking at the plate mail of some sort of sea creature when I view the interlink of this bracelet, the tolerances for which are simply incredible. It has the feeling of silk rather than chainmail on the wrist. It really does feel like you're dealing with a fabric, as the links themselves have a very short cross section. And then you can see the way it's finished. There's a lovely polished interplay along with the satin finished primaries. The internal facets are all of high polish, and it's something you really only notice to the fullest extent when you roll the bracelet through the light. Of course, there is a profile that starts on the flank of the case, a polished profile that continues perfectly aligned across the individual links. Here we have a system of pins and sleeves to make for secure fitment of many individually removable links, so you will get the right size. You can see it's a double fold deployment with twin trigger release, so the twin trigger ensures it's not going to pop open accidentally. Rolling back to the crown, as with the other Streamliners, it's a screw down, which endows this model with 120-meter water resistance. And of course, we have that lovely cambered sapphire, which I adore because it evokes the thermoplastic and mineral crystals of the 70s. We also have a lovely tonneau, and again, a reference to an era, not a reference to a specific watch. The dial is a lovely fume fade. We have an almost argent silver gray that fades to black at the edge. Moser calls this fume. It is a gradient dial, and you can see in another nod to the 1970s, we have a staggered track outboard for reading the seconds, and that is sometimes known as a racing dial. You can also see that the watch features a pronounced metallic grain and a super subtle engraved H. Moser Cie marquee up at 12 o'clock. Now you can see that there's a lot of design parallelism here, as the hands, as well as the baton-style indices, they actually have the exact same rounded profile. The hands themselves have that lovely rounded baton form, and on top of them, a Globalite luminescent ceramic material has been placed. You can also see that there's a power reserve indicator that's integrated into the station approximately where the 10 o'clock hour index would be. There's a counterweighted lancet-style seconds hand, and of course we do have a Moser Cie Perpetual calendar system, the famed calendar designed by Andreas Streller, that is immune to setting damage, regardless of when you set it, and allows you to set it bi-directionally. So I'll demonstrate. There is a system whereby you can set the calendar in either direction. There is a little stub index, 12 hours corresponding to 12 months. So you have this ability to set with quick set functionality. Now, while it jumps a little bit unconventionally when you quick set it, it always distinguishes correctly between the irregular length months of the year when it drives itself through the date change and the month change. And you'll note that Andreas Streller has incorporated a system that is super spare, as there's very little detail. You'd never guess outwardly that this is a perpetual calendar that can deal with all of the regular and irregular length months and leap years. Now, you'll also note that there is a rather large break between discs, as this is a big date comprised of oversized numerals with two superimposed discs underneath the dial. That's how Moser achieves these large date apertures without having a supersized dial. Normally, you would need a supersized dial for supersized discs. Let's do a quick loom shot for the watch. And you can see that globalite material. Also, take note that the date itself features loomed typeface. Now, rolling over, you can see one of the traditional strengths of the Moser manufacturer. They like to build every part of a movement. So they are building the assortment. That is the 14 karat gold pallet, the escape wheel, which is also 14 karat gold, the overcoil hairspring, and the balance. The watch features a balance that is free sprung on a full balance bridge for durability, and it beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour, which is a nice, steady, traditional pocket watch-like beat. Here you can see there's a lovely nickel anthracite across the caliber's bridges and plates, and you will note that the leap year phase indicator for the perpetual calendar is depicted on the case back. There is a pusher adjuster on the 9 o'clock side of the watch to manipulate that leap year cycle. The watch is rated as a 7-day power reserve, but in truth, they underpromise and overdeliver, as these watches tend to run for almost 9 days to exhaustion. Twin mainspring barrels, you can see they're set in golden chaton, fixed by black polished screws, as they would have been in the pocket watch era of Moser watch construction in the late 19th century and early 20th century. A big, broad, properly sized movement. You can see it fills the case perfectly, and through precision engineering, Moser is making those tough parts, such as the overcoil, which allows the watch to enjoy concentric breathing of the hairspring in any position, so it keeps very good and even time in any orientation with respect to gravity. Reach out to me, Team Mosso, at tmosso@thewatchbox.com for additional details of the newest Moser Cie Streamliner.